I'm Emily Mashak, and I'm sitting down today with Tanya Dunn, the yoga instructor for the Yoga for Veterans that we have here in Fort Collins. So thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Before we get into what Yoga for Veterans is, though, I want to talk a little bit about you. How did you begin your yoga journey?
Oh, my yoga journey?
Yeah, how did you become a yoga instructor? What made you want to do it?
Oh, gosh. Well, it was in my late teens. My mother actually practiced yoga when I was a teenager. And then I had back pain and I had tremendous amount of anxiety. And when I started practicing yoga at the university in the 80s, early 80s, this was one of my very first classes I took at the university, CSU, actually. Just from there, just it relieved my back pain and relieved kind of my chronic anxiety. It wasn't until almost maybe 15, close to 20 years into my practice that I decided that I wanted to teach, but I was very humbled by the teaching and wasn't sure that I would be a good enough teacher. And so I entered the training in 2006 very humbly, thinking that, gosh, there's just so much here, so much wisdom in the yoga practice, and I just wanted to absorb it all, and then I wanted to share it with others. So what led me then to more trainings and led me to the trauma training and the Warriors at Ease training. So Warriors at Ease is an organization that I got my yoga teacher training from for my Yoga for Veterans, and it supports the military population. It was founded in 2001, and it was formed at the Walter Reed Medical Center, the VA Medical Center, and they are continuing to work in partnership with the military population on the studies and the impacts of yoga and the benefits. So just wanted to put a plug in for Warriors at Ease. And then Comeback Yoga is an organization that's in Denver that was formed in 2014, and I am a Comeback Yoga instructor. Again, an organization that supports the military population and their families. They have classes all across the Front Range, even up to Cheyenne. Free yoga classes, and we have one at the VFW starting October 10th from 5 to 6 p.m. It's a Thursday. And then we have one at the Loveland VFW on Mondays at 3 p.m. So, and those are all free.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I'll admit, when I was researching for this interview, I totally stalked your Instagram.
Awesome.
I know, but I saw that you said you are an ERYT and a YACEP yoga instructor.
Yes. What
What does that mean? What do those mean?
Yes, exactly. So a YACEP means Yoga Alliance Certified Educational Professional.
Okay.
So I have enough hours that I can train the trainers basically and provide more educational credits for yoga instructors. Mm-hmm. And then the ERYT just means that I'm an experienced registered yoga teacher through Yoga Alliance. I only have 200 hours, even though I've taught well over 10,000 hours. I'm working towards 500 hours.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
That's quite an accomplishment.
Thank you.
And you specialize in trauma recovery specifically. Mm-hmm. How does that type of yoga differ from a typical practice?
Mm-hmm. Trauma recovery yoga, the training I took was called TRIBE. So Trauma Recovery Yoga is what TRY stands for. And it was actually created out of October 1 in Las Vegas after the Las Vegas shooting. And there are other trauma-informed yoga teacher trainings and practices, but trauma recovery or trauma-informed yoga practices are different from regular yoga classes in that we are sensitive to potential injuries such as traumatic brain injury, any kind of experienced trauma, whether it's through mass violence, whether it's through individual violence, sexual trauma, any kind of anything that a person might label to them as trauma. It could be a traumatic childhood. It could be, again, something that's, a car accident, something that's maybe more dramatic, but trauma can vary person to person and how we recover from trauma. And the classes are taught in a way that we are sensitive to an individual, not only their emotional state, but to their physical state of being. So we don't walk around the room in a trauma-informed yoga class. We never walk behind people as to not, of course, startle them. There's certain poses that we don't do, don't put the population in a vulnerable position. Especially if they've had any kind of a sexual trauma. We use more science than we do Sanskrit. Watch our language in terms of making sure that the individual is taken care of and that they're allowed to explore whatever comes up in their practice. And it's okay for them to cry or even just shake or be still, or they don't have to do the practice. They can just sit and they don't have to close their eyes, and we're never forcing them into something that they're not comfortable doing.
So it's very accepting of anyone with any kind of trauma background.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about yoga for veterans. Can you just walk me through what a typical class would be like?
So a typical yoga class for veterans is, first of all, I kind of give them the lay of the land, what to expect from me as an instructor, what to expect from the class. We always have pretty much an order of postures so that each time they come, they know that that's what they're going to get. So there aren't a lot of surprises. And I do provide chairs for somebody that maybe can't get up and down off the floor, or somebody that is, there's lots of different conditions that come into the yoga for veterans. Some of them might be deaf for head explosions. They might have traumatic brain injury. They might be missing limbs. They might just have chronic pain or that kind of thing. So adapting the classes to the population that comes to that particular class. So it does require, maybe a little bit on the fly in some of these classes because we just don't know who's going to be coming that week. And we'll lead them through what's called inner resourcing to begin with, and that is where they can go to that place, whether it's a real place or whether it's an imaginary place, a fantasy place. That's an inner resource that makes them feel really at ease, makes them feel at peace. And it could be something from a childhood, it could be something that happened that day that makes them feel really good and well inside. And leading them through that inner resource, and then we work through some breath work and movement, and maybe through a seated salutation or a standing salutation. We typically don't do any standing balance poses because sometimes that can feel traumatizing for individuals. And then there will always be some kind of a still point in the practice that they get to, again, go within, sense all their body parts, even if they don't have all their body parts anymore. It's important that we still recognize that they might be feeling those body parts even though they're not there. And then we use kind of a closing meditation of sorts. And teaching them the resources of learning to ground, self-regulate, breathe. Those are kind of the basic principles of the yoga class, and again, kind of that self-regulation that comes from that learning not to be triggered, and if we are triggered, we will be triggered, but how to then self-regulate so that we don't react.
Yeah. So it really gives them tools that they can use outside of the yoga classroom as well.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
That's the primary aim. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about logistics. When is the class? How can people attend? What does it cost? All that.
So the Raintree Athletic Club class is Tuesday nights, every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's in Studio 2. And there is no fee. It's free. No equipment is required. They don't have to sign up early. They just can come in or they can contact me if they have any questions or concerns or special needs. I'd love to hear from them. I can give them my
Yeah,
email
yeah.
address.
How would they reach out to you?
They can email me at t, as in Tanya, dot Renee, Renee, Dunn, Dunn, at gmail.com. And my phone number is 970-566-1988. And they can reach out to me either way, and if they have questions or concerns. And that's the Tuesday night class at Raintree.
How have you seen the class impact veterans specifically since you've been teaching it?
The class, I've seen men and women in the class and have had a few regular participants. I think the main thing is that they are finding the benefits from is to breathe deeper, learning breath regulation, knowing when they're experiencing pain versus discomfort, and knowing not to push through that pain. And again, just tapping into that inner resource so that they can self-regulate a little bit better.
How has yoga, you touched on this a little bit, but just how has it impacted your life since you've been doing it? I know that's a big question, and I know it helps a lot with your anxiety and some physical pain, but just what are some of the positive manifestations you've seen since you began?
I think the main thing is, again, anxiety reduction, and that's just through learning to breathe deeper, learning to recognize when I'm experiencing anxiety. Not to say I don't ever experience it still, I just don't experience it like I used to. Just an overall sense of self-awareness, primarily, understanding how I respond to different things, and also being okay with whatever comes up.
You're also an aromatherapist, is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? I don't know a
Yes.
lot about aromatherapy.
Yes. That's another thing that kind of has eased my anxiety. Aromatherapy basically is the use of essential oils. We can use them in the house for cleaning. We can use them for our wellness. I do not recommend ingesting oils. There are some companies that recommend ingesting oils, but there's not enough studies that actually show that that's okay for us. So our body responds to scents in a lot of different ways. We can be energized by scents. We can be grounded by scents. Our sinuses can be cleared by scents. And there's all these different molecules that make up essential oils. There's different components within each oil, and it's very, very complex and broad. And when I dove into aromatherapy, the science of it, I just geeked out totally because of how fascinating the plant world is at that molecular level, and how, let's say, terpenes or monoterpenes or sesquiterpenes, these are all components that are within oils that have different properties that can benefit us in so many different ways. And it doesn't take much. And some oils can be used on the skin directly. Some oils need to be used with a carrier oil. So a test patch should always be used before directly applying, because we all have different sensitivities to oils, and also oils have, again, different components that can actually cause damage to the skin.
Right.
So.
What is the best oil for stress and anxiety? I have a diffuser at home, so I have a few. Yeah. Usually I go with lavender. That's what I read on the internet, but do you have any expert suggestions for that?
Yeah, lavender is kind of your common go-to. It's important to understand, though, that there can be different extractions of lavender. And sometimes if we overdo lavender, it can actually be more stimulating than not. So again, a little bit can go a long way with lavender. Neroli is another really good calming oil. It's from a flower essence. So if you like the scents of flowers, that's a really good one. Sandalwood is a really nice, relaxing one. It can, again, a little too much can be more stimulating, but sandalwood is a really nice earthy scent. Cedarwood is another really nice calming, grounding oil.
Kind of going off of that, and again, going back to your Instagram when I was looking through it, you had a lot of great wellness tips in general on there. Do you mind sharing kind of just a few that you use a lot, or do you that you think really are just beneficial for getting through everyday life?
Legs up the wall is a really good pose for anybody who's experiencing anxiety, post-traumatic stress. Put your legs up the wall, like it says, legs up the wall. You lay down on your back. If you aren't comfortable with your legs up the wall, you can have your legs over a chair. Maybe put something over your eyes if you're sensitive to light. And if you think you might fall asleep, then set a timer with a really nice chime or something on your phone. That's a really lovely one. You can do it as a standalone posture. You can do it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day. You don't have to combine it with any other postures. It can be done any time of day. Very grounding, very good for fatigued legs, good for stress and anxiety.
Well, legs up the wall sounds like a great pose to know. Thanks again for coming in and talking to me today, Tanya.
All right. Thanks so much, Emily.
Again, that was Tanya Dunn, the instructor for Yoga for Veterans, which occurs at the Raintree Athletic Club every third Saturday.